The stagecoach rattled down the dusty road like a wooden coffin dragged across gravel, every jolt sending Clara Hartwell clutching the seat to steady herself. She had been traveling for days, first by train, then by wagon, and finally by this old, groaning stagecoach whose driver barely spoke except to spit tobacco and curse the heat. Dust clung to her bonnet, her hems, and her eyelashes. Her fingers ached from gripping her suitcase, the one possession left untouched by the chaos of the last few years of her life. But all of it, the travel, the heat, the exhaustion, had been bearable because she believed she was heading toward the future she'd been promised. A new life, a husband who had written her gentle, straightforward letters. A place where she might finally belong. That belief shattered when the stagecoach screeched to a stop in front of a ranch gate bearing the carved words. Hawthorne Range. Not Hayes Ranch. Not Daniel Hayes. Not the man who had sent money for her fare and written that he was in earnest need of companionship and a woman's presence in the home. Clara stared at the gate, her heart sinking fast. "Driver," she said, leaning forward, "I believe this isn't my stop." He spit out the side of the wagon. "Only ranch for miles, miss. And it's the one marked on my route. But I'm meant for the Hayes Ranch." He shrugged. "Maybe they changed the name. Maybe your man's renting from the Hawthorns." Clara opened her mouth to protest, but he'd already hopped down, tossed her suitcase to the ground, and swung himself back onto the seat. "Stage goes no farther this direction today," he announced. "Good luck to ya, miss." And then he was off, dust swallowing the back of the coach as it disappeared down the lonely road. Clara stood there, utterly alone with her suitcase and her heartbeat pounding loud enough to drown the distant call of cattle. She turned slowly toward the house, a sturdy structure, clearly worked by ranch hands and family alike. Smoke drifted from the chimney. Chickens pecked around the yard. A hammock swayed lazily on the porch. None of it looked like the place she'd been told about. Before she could gather her courage to approach, the front door swung open. A tall man stepped out, the screen slapping behind him. He was broad-shouldered, with a weathered tan and a presence that filled the space around him. His gray eyes flicked from her suitcase to her face with clear suspicion. Beside him stood a little girl, small, delicate, with curls the color of soft gold. She watched Clara with a curiosity too intense for someone so young. The man descended the steps slowly. "You're the bride?" he asked, voice low and edged with disbelief. Clara stiffened. "Yes, sir. I was sent for by Mr. Daniel Hayes." The man's eyebrows knit together. "Hayes? He's 2 days west of here. This is the Hawthorne Range. I didn't send for a bride." Her stomach twisted. There must be some mistake. "Must be," he agreed, though he didn't sound relieved. More like something heavy had settled inside him. He looked at her a moment too long, as if trying to unravel how a stranger had landed in his yard. Clara felt exposed, embarrassed. She'd traveled halfway across the country, only to end up at the wrong ranch because someone mixed up instructions. "I'm sorry to trouble you," she murmured, turning slightly toward the road as though another coach might magically appear. "I'll find a way to the Hayes Ranch." The man didn't respond at first. It was the little girl who stepped forward. She tugged gently at Clara's skirt with small, hesitant fingers. Her eyes, big hazel pools shimmering in the harsh sun, held something raw, something Clara recognized deep in her bones: loneliness. Clara crouched instinctively to be eye level. "Hello there," she said softly. "What's your name?" The child leaned closer until Clara could feel the warmth of her breath. And then she whispered, barely audible, "God finally sent you to us." Clara's breath hitched. The words curled through her heart like a tender vine. "Lily," the father warned under his breath, discomfort flickering over his rugged features. But Lily didn't look away. She held Clara's gaze with a strange, fierce certainty. Clara stood slowly, her throat tight. I won't leave tonight," she said before she even understood why she was saying it. The rancher's eyes widened ever so slightly. He looked at her not with suspicion now, but with a stunned, wary hope, as if fate had knocked on his door instead of hers. And Lily, hearing Clara's promise, slid her small hand into Clara's as though she had been waiting her whole life to do so. The sun slid lower across the sky, bathing the Hawthorne Range in amber light as Clara finished her meal at the pine wood table. She hadn't expected kindness here, not after arriving by mistake, dusty and disheartened, but Elias Hawthorne had silently placed a warm plate in front of her, and Lily sat so close her little shoulder pressed into Clara's side as she ate. It had been years since anyone treated her like she belonged at a family table. Elias wasn't much for conversation. He moved around the kitchen with the quiet precision of a man used to long days and longer solitude. Every so often, he'd glance at her, his storm gray eyes studying her as if trying to determine her purpose. She couldn't blame him. Women didn't just appear at ranches without reason. Especially women promised to other men. When supper ended, Clara made to take her plate to the basin, but Elias stepped forward, stopping her with a subtle lift of his hand. "You're a guest," he said. "Sit, I'll take care of it." She blinked. It had been so long since anyone insisted she rest that she didn't know how. Lily tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Come see my room." Clara followed the girl down the hall, noticing the walls lined with framed photographs, sunsets, horses, a younger Elias holding an infant Lily with a woman whose smile radiated gentle warmth. Clara paused before it. "That's my mama," Lily said, voice soft, though not broken. "She went to heaven. Papa says heaven is really close, just in a place we can't see." Clara touched the edge of the frame with a tender hand. "She was very beautiful." Lily nodded proudly. "You look a little like her." The words struck Clara still. No one had ever compared her to someone beloved. But Lily said it with simple truth, without agenda or hesitation. The girl pulled her into a smaller room next to her own. Sunlight filtered through a lace-curtained window, illuminating a neatly made cot, a small table, and a rocking chair pushed lovingly into a corner. "This used to be Mama's sewing room," Lily said. "Papa put all her things in storage 'cause, well, he didn't want to be sad every day. But we kept her favorite chair." She reached out and touched the curved wooden arm of the rocker. "It still creaks the way she liked." Clara's throat tightened. This room, tiny, quiet, scented faintly of lavender, already felt more welcoming than any she'd stayed in the past few years. "Thank you for letting me stay here tonight," Clara murmured. Lily stepped closer. "You'll stay more than one night, right?" Clara hesitated. "Sweetheart, I came here by accident. Your papa didn't send for a bride." Lily's face dimmed for a moment, but then she lifted her chin. "But I prayed." Clara felt the floor shift beneath her. "Prayed for what?" "For someone like you," Lily whispered. Before Clara could answer, Elias's voice drifted down the hall. "Lily, let Miss Hartwell settle in." The girl sighed but obeyed. She slipped out, leaving Clara alone with the lingering hush of memories and hopes she wasn't sure she could carry. Later, after Lily had gone to bed, Clara stepped outside. The porch boards creaked beneath her weight as she approached where Elias stood, arms crossed as he gazed at the moon rising above the fields. He didn't turn, but she knew he sensed her. "I should explain," she began softly. "You don't have to." His voice was calm, though it carried a weariness she recognized instantly, grief, stretched thin but unbroken. "I hate the thought of misleading her." Clara leaned on the porch railing, watching the wind ripple through the tall grasses. "She's a sweet child. She hasn't smiled like that in a long time." Elias let out a slow breath, bracing his hands against the rail. 3 years since my wife died. I've tried to give her everything I can, but there's only so much a man can do alone." Clara turned her head toward him. "She loves you deeply. She needs more than me." A pause. "But that doesn't mean you should stay just because she grabbed onto you." Clara swallowed. "I don't want to hurt her." "That's exactly why it'll hurt," he murmured. "She believes in things, big things. Prayers, signs, miracles." His jaw tensed. "She thinks you're one." Clara looked down at her hands. "I'll talk to her in the morning," she said quietly. "Explain gently." Elias nodded but didn't look comforted. His eyes flickered with something like resignation, and something else, fear, maybe, that this strange, delicate moment of calm in their house would vanish before morning. Clara lingered there a moment longer, listening to the wind, the night birds, the faint thump of hooves in the pasture. It felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life, but the strange thing was, it fit. More than any life she'd tried to build for herself before. Neither she nor Elias noticed the slim figure standing behind the corridor's half-open door. Lily watched them, small hands clasped beneath her chin, tears shimmering in her eyes, not from sadness, but from fierce, trembling hope. Morning arrived gently, spilling warm gold across Clara's borrowed room. For a moment she lay still, letting the unfamiliar softness of the bed and the scent of sun-warmed wood cradle her. But then the truth pressed in. Today she would have to say goodbye. She rose slowly, smoothing her dress with trembling hands. Her bag was already packed from the night before. Every folded garment felt like a small betrayal. She rehearsed what she would tell Lily, words meant to be soft enough not to bruise the child's fragile hope. Words meant to be firm enough that she would understand Clara wasn't hers to keep. Her breath wavered at the thought. When she stepped into the kitchen, coffee already simmered on the stove. Elias stood near it, strong and silent, staring out the window as if he'd been awake for hours. The tension in his shoulders made Clara's heart twist. He turned when she entered. "Morning." "Good morning," she replied, her voice gentler than she expected. Before either of them could say more, Lily appeared in the doorway. One look at her red-rimmed eyes told Clara the child hadn't slept much, and that she already knew. "You're leaving," Lily whispered. Clara's heart splintered. She dropped to her knees and opened her arms, and Lily rushed into them like a storm finding harbor. "I have to go, sweetheart," Clara murmured, brushing the girl's hair with a trembling hand. "Your father didn't send for a bride. I came here by accident. But I don't care about a bride," Lily sobbed against her shoulder. "I don't want any bride. I want you." Her small fists clutched Clara's dress as if she were anchoring her to the earth. Elias stepped forward. "Lily," he said softly but firmly. "Let Miss Hartwell." "No," Lily cried, pulling tighter. "God sent her." "He did." Clara held the trembling girl close, feeling the weight of her longing. She had known loneliness in her own life, years of drifting from place to place, unseen, unclaimed, but Lily's loneliness was different. It was louder, braver. It reached right into the deepest part of Clara and tugged. When Lily's sobs finally softened, Clara lifted her chin and met Elias's gaze over the child's head. The rawness there stunned her. "I can't stay if I'm not wanted," Clara whispered. Elias's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something deeper. Something wounded, something afraid. "That's not it," he said quietly. "It's never been that." Clara rose slowly, keeping Lily close as Elias stepped nearer. The morning light cast shadows across his features, carving vulnerability where strength usually lived. "My daughter hasn't slept through the night in months," he said, voice thick. "Yesterday she did. She hasn't laughed, really laughed, since her mother died. But last night she did that too. Because of you." Clara's breath caught. "You were here for one evening," Elias continued, "and you filled this house with something we haven't felt in a long time. Hope, warmth, belonging." Clara could see the truth in his eyes, even if he struggled to voice it. "But if I ask you to stay," he murmured, "I risk losing you later. And I don't know if I can put Lily through that. Or myself." Clara swallowed hard. She understood fear. She carried her own, but she also knew what it felt like to have no one waiting for you at the end of the day. Lily looked up then, her small hand finding Clara's cheek. "Are you meant to be here?" she whispered. Clara didn't answer immediately. She glanced around, the worn wooden floor, the kettle steaming softly, the scent of hay drifting in through the window. None of this was hers. But it felt like it could be. Finally, she looked at Lily, the child who had tugged her skirt the moment she arrived, as if recognizing her soul. Then she looked at Elias, the man whose grief was carved into his silence, whose heart seemed to beat in cautious, quiet hope. "I don't know if I'm meant to be here," Clara said, her voice trembling with truth. "But I want to be." Lily let out a trembling breath of pure relief. Elias stood still for a long moment, as though letting the words settle deep. Then, slowly, carefully, he extended his hand toward Clara. Not demanding, not assuming, simply offering her a place in a life that had room for healing. "If you stay," he said softly, "we figure things out together. No rush, no expectations, just honesty and kindness." His voice wavered. "We could use both." Clara looked at his hand, then at Lily, who had begun to smile through her tears. A smile filled with so much hope it felt like sunrise breaking. Her own hand trembled as she reached out, and slid her fingers into his. Lily clasped their joined hands in hers, her face radiant with joy. She pressed her forehead to Clara's arm and whispered, full of wonder and certainty. "God finally sent you to us." Clara felt the truth of it settle inside her like a warm light. Not fate, not accident, but grace, quiet, unexpected, and utterly life-changing.